Alan Seeger writes, "For a while, every boy's father is a god to him. Then slowly, as the boy makes his own discoveries, he dwindles into a man. For better or worse, Ted was spared this gloomy declension. Otto Roethke died when he was still the untainted source of power, love, and lightnings of anger. Once the numbness of shock had worn away, it must have seemed to Ted that the stays and props of his whole life were broken. In the space of 3 months, the greenhouse was gone, his uncle was gone, his father was gone. The stage where he had played out his childhood was no longer his. The object of his hatred was removed, and nothing is so foolish as to hate the dead. And what he lost, when the dirt fell on his father's grave, was going to take the rest of his life to learn."
My papa's waltz. The whiskey on your breath could make a small boy dizzy, but I hung on like death. Such waltzing was not easy. We romped until the pan slid from the kitchen shelf. My mother's countenance could not unfrown itself. The hand that held my wrist was battered on one knuckle. At every step you missed, my right ear scraped a buckle. You beat time on my head with a palm caked hard by dirt, then waltzed me off to bed, still clinging to your shirt.
Ted left Saginaw to begin college studies at the University of Michigan in 1925. He was 17. He began preparing for a career in law because that's what was expected of him at home. He quickly learned he wasn't suited for that, and he began more deliberately to become a poet. His career would take him to teaching positions in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Vermont, and Washington. Wherever he taught, his students accounted him as a tough but overwhelmingly inspiring teacher. The students at San Francisco State University enjoyed Roethke's visits and poetry readings so much that they agreed in the early 1960s to raise money and find a filmmaker to document Roethke's poetic abilities. The black and white film that resulted, In a Dark Time, features Roethke's reading his poetry and talking about such things as teaching and learning, consciousness, and writing poetry. The library at Saginaw Valley State University has a copy of it.
While Roethke was highly respected by teachers and administrators as well, someone disliked Roethke enough to complain to a Washington state legislator about the leaves of absence he took because of his manic depressive disorder. Other complaints pointed out that Roethke drank too much. These complaints worried the president of the university. In the late 1950s, he asked another faculty member in the English department to write a letter of support on Roethke's behalf.
In summary, there are about 10 distinguished awards that Roethke has won since he has been here. And at every such announcement, the name of the University of Washington has won national attention. Let us put it into the most materialistic terms. No one else has given us so much free public relations of the most excellent sort. Robert Heilman.
A special honor not mentioned in Heilman's letter was awarded to Roethke in 1962. At the University of Michigan, Roethke received an honorary PhD, Doctor of Letters.
Roethke visited Saginaw for the last time with his wife Beatrice in 1960. In a ceremony at Arthur Hill High School, Ted was celebrated as the 10th honor alumnus. In 1961, a special section of the high school yearbook included him. At the time, a former student of Roethke's, Carolyn Kaiser, was quoted in the New Republic as saying, "Talent is in Seattle because Roethke is here."
In August of 1963, Ted was 55 years old. On August 1st, he went to Bainbridge Island, not far from his home near Seattle, to see his friends, the Bladels, while Beatrice stayed in downtown Seattle shopping. As Alan Seeger tells it, Mrs. Bladel, her daughter, Mrs. Meadowcraft, and the Meadowcraft's governess were all at the swimming pool. Ted joined them and made some mint juleps, which he put into the refrigerator. It was still hot at 5 in the afternoon, and Ted said he was going to take a swim. The women were sitting at the edge of the pool talking, and since they knew Ted swam well enough, paying little attention to him. He dove in and swam to the shallow end. A moment or two later, they noticed him floating face down. The three women got him out of the water, his face blue, and Mrs. Meadowcraft tried mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, while the others called Beatrice and a doctor. The doctor arrived, examined Ted, and pronounced him dead of a coronary occlusion. Ted's ashes were buried beside the graves of his mother and father in Oakwood Cemetery in Saginaw. As part of the memorial service there, one of Ted's favorite passages from Sir Walter Raleigh was read. O eloquent, just, and mighty death, whom none could advise thou hast persuaded. What none hath dared thou hast done, and whom all the world hath flattered, thou only hast cast out of the world and despised. Thou hast drawn together all the far-stretched greatness, all the pride, cruelty, and ambition of man, and covered it all over with these two narrow words, hic jacet.